why am I not creating opportunities to have philosophical inquiries with people from all of these groups? And so you took part in our very first one. So Socrates Café, I started it in 1996 when I was still a young man. If you go to our website, socratescafe.com, you can see more detail about what it's all about. But I started it it was meant to be mostly a project for the United States at a time when there was great division, great polarization among people of very different views. They didn't want to listen to different perspectives. They wanted to argue, and they wanted to argue without listening. They didn't care what other people thought. They were right and everybody else was wrong. And so I have citizenship of the United States, but also of Greece. So I learned when I was very, very young all about Socrates and Plato from my grandmother, my Greek grandmother, my yaya. She escaped from this tiny island called Nisos in the South Aegean to come to the United States because the fascists from Italy had conquered their island. She wasn't even allowed to teach in Greek anymore in the classes. They had to teach in Italian. So she and her husband escaped, and they came through Ellis Island into the United States. And that's the reason I was born where I was born, in the United States. But she taught me at a very young age about how philosophy belongs to everybody. It's not meant to be just an academic discipline, but it's meant to be something where we discuss and inquire in public places. I can tell you more about that, but it's also in my books. My first book is called Socrates Café, and my new book is called Soul of Goodness, which really tells the story of my family's origins in Greece. But the biggest idea I want to convey is that Socrates Café is supposed to be an exploration and an inquiry instead of a debate and an argument. Debate and argument is very good and it's very important. But first, before we debate, before we start arguing, we need to feel a connection with each other. And so my foundational forms of inquiry are supposed to establish habits of exploring where we sometimes unexpectedly discover some common ground. And the most important thing probably is to really listen carefully to other people. Even as we express ourselves and further develop and give birth to our points of view, that we also, part of that process is listening careful to other people because they help us. They help us further discover and develop our own perspectives. And so I've been doing this now this is my 28th year, and there seems to be more of a desire for this than ever. The United States is more polarized now than it was when I started it in 1996. Does that mean I failed? I don't know, because more groups are forming because people are concerned. There's more groups now in the United States out of that deep concern that you cannot have a democracy, you cannot have an open society unless we are willing to listen and to consider many different perspectives. Cecilia, co-founder of our nonprofit, Socrates Café, Democracy Café, was at our very first groups. And she's also the co-founder. Ceci was a teacher in an indigenous community in Mexico before we met and we married. And we're also very involved in projects in Latin America, in particular Mexico. And there's rising violence against women in Mexico like never before. Cases of femicide are soaring right now in Mexico, and we're trying to be part of efforts to understand why that is happening and what we can do about that. I want to stress that you also, anybody who doesn't feel comfortable talking, there's a chat function in the Zoom. So if you want to write your thoughts, I will be vigilant and look at the chat so I can see what you say, and then we can talk about it. Okay, so you should feel very comfortable also using the chat function. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk anymore, but again, I just want to stress it's about inquiry, it's about exploration more than it is about debate, why I'm right and you're wrong. There's another time and place for that in another platform, but that's not what Socrates Café is. I just want to give Cecilia just a moment also to speak, and then we'll move in.
Thank you. So, I am actually using Chris's microphone so that we don't echo. Just I want to be aware, well, mindful of the fact that it's not your first language, just like it's not mine. I'm from Mexico. Two things. One is there are captions. I don't know if you mentioned it in your language or not. I didn't. I don't speak it, but if you go to the bottom of your screen, there's 3 little dots, and then if you click onto that where it says more, well, in English that's what it says, then you can show the captions so that you can see it and read it while we speak. You can also say that. And also, if somebody doesn't feel comfortable speaking English, perhaps somebody can translate so that we can all feel like equally included.
Yes. And I would also add for the participants not to worry about the grammar. We will, interpret the question.
No.
Of course.
I hold dialogues all over the world, and we always have somebody who can sort of, we don't arrange it always formally, but there's always somebody who can at least translate for us, and please don't ever worry about being perfect in English or any other language. Please don't, that's not even a consideration.
Yeah. So, I was thinking about just the question in general. How do we recognize instances and acts of gender inequality and violence against women and minorities? And so just as a very brief introduction, because I'm from Mexico, and as Chris was saying, there's so much violence against women and minorities, against indigenous groups or mixed groups. And also there are cultural things, that our grandparents perhaps were trying to change, but that our grandparents and mothers and, grandmothers to, do certain acts that are kind of part of the culture, that are perhaps racism, or just little acts like serving men first, things like that. So I was just thinking about to be aware of also how we feel in those terms. How do we feel when somebody speaks first, for example, or if we are supposed to give somebody else the option of keep going before we do. So just little acts, and we'll go ahead and get started.
I want to say one thing. My Greek grandmother, Calliope, was born in 1895. And in Greece at that time, on the islands, women were the leaders of society. Women, my grandmother, it was what's called in English matrilineal. And it was wonderful. My grandmother had this very strong, intimidating personality in the best way. And so my origins are one where government and leadership was led by women. And so that had a very strong influence in my life in the best way. I learned, she died when I was only 12 years old, but I learned so much about just from the strong and beautiful woman, when I was at a very young age. I didn't always appreciate it like I did. I want to stress that we have 4 of these sessions, so we don't have to end today. This is a beginning. And at each of the sessions, you know, we'll get a little further. Maybe we'll go down directions and roads and pathways that we didn't expect. And even after 4 sessions, we might have more questions than we do answers. But the idea is that we keep moving forward at a time when human civilization itself is at a crossroads, is at a real critical crossroads. So I'm really honored to receive this invitation, because I think that even if we explore this sort of locally and nationally from the perspective of your country, this is something that resonates everywhere. These are universal issues. So this is just the first of 4, and I'm very glad and grateful for that. But I think where we should start is, I would just like your perspective on how do you recognize when there is violence against women? Because there's obviously many acts of violence that are very obvious, very noticeable. But what are other acts of gender inequality or of violence against women that might not be so obvious to you? Maybe you've experienced these yourself. But so I would like to understand your philosophy of gender equality and gender inequality and of violence against women, and by looking at specific examples, maybe something that has happened to you, or just maybe something that you've read about or seen happen to other people. So what are what to you is violence against women? What are some acts that we might not be so aware of that also, and is violence and gender inequality, are they tied together always? So anybody feel free to just say what to you is violence against women? What is an instance of it, or of gender inequality?
You can just unmute if you want to speak. You don't have to raise hand.
No, anything you want to do. If you want to raise your hand, you can. You don't have to. Anything. So maybe Zilko wants to start.
So I've been waiting for someone, especially students, to jump in.
We have Elvisa who wanted to say something.
Okay, Elvisa, go ahead. We don't hear you.
Elisa.
Elvisa. Okay, someone else.
I think her internet froze.
Yeah.
But we have a raised hand from anonymous user, Xiaomi M21, so feel free to speak.
Hello. Okay, let's do that. They have to unmute. Unmute. How do you do? Oh, I'm not.
Hello.
I forgot that I'm not.
Hello.
Hi.
Do you hear me?
Yes.
I'm sorry because I had to switch through my phone. I'm not anonymous. My name is Sabina Mujezinovic. I'm coming from Bosnia, from Tuzla region, from Tuzla city, and it's written here, it's Xiaomi, my phone type or whatever. But okay, my name is Sabina. I'm not a student of my dear Zilka, but I know her work for decades, and I do appreciate what she's been doing and what she is doing. I'm somebody who is, I would say, all my life engaged in women's rights. By profession, I'm an engineer, I'm an agronomist, and I would like to say usually this profession was tightly connected to the man. So you can't be engineer and being a woman. It's something so weird. although we know that the women's brain is completely different and much quality working than so many men's, but I'm not here to be Amazon. I would like to say that I cannot really tell any of my stories of direct violence as a physical violence, because I was raised up in the family where women power and women energy was very strong. I'm coming from a Muslim family, from Islamic family with a very strong Islamic roots and tradition. But my grandma was the one who first broke, she said, the feudalic inheritance in Gradačac. This is a very small town in northeast Bosnia, and very famous after bravehood of the inhabitants. And she was a widow with 5 children right after the Second World War, 3 girls and then 2 boys, and each and every of them was entitled to school. And she said to everybody, they were enormously rich, but you know, after Second World War in the ex-Yugoslavia, lots of those things were just nationalized. And she said to everybody, no matter what we have been, you have to finish school. So everybody finished school. And she was the one who also offered in her house to take analphabetic trainers for old and elderly Muslim women, just to be able at least to sign their names or to know something. So my mother and my 2 aunties and 2 uncles, they were very much involved in that, and let's say, project of my grandma. So from the beginning, she was somehow infected us, I would say, in a positive way, that being woman, it's not weakness, it's rather strength and it's opportunity. And being woman, it's so nice and so good. And we have to use our brain and our women power. But I would say that due to my professional work and everything I was doing and I have been doing and I'm doing, it's every day's challenge to, even today I had some very interesting, let's say, clash, but be nice and accept this clash in the very figurative way. How one woman can think that way, because I'm trained to be on the side of the solution, and I'm supposed to be very weak and very unuseful and very somebody who needs a help in every and each moment. And today I had of the younger colleague, who might be even my son, who said, it's not possible that you, like a woman, can think like that way and you can solve that problem, which was very terrifying for me, because I was thinking in the 21st century that we would have a man who could be emancipated. We emancipated ourselves, we women, but we didn't emancipate our men. I think we missed to do that. And when I see the 30, let's say 30, in his 30s, young boy whom I can be mother easily, he simply cannot see a woman as a partner in a job, because we are the same project. I'm not going to be his lover. I'm not going to be his mother, not his sister. We simply have a project that we have to do by the way. No, he, instead of putting our common activities on the path towards the goal and outcomes, he started this morning with his problem of having a woman who is team leader. And this is something which is, I think, very, I would say now unhappy, but unhappy, it's too mild expression for what I have been feeling all day. I was really hoping, really, honestly, I was born in 1964, so I'm rock and roll generation. I was really hoping very warmly that in the 21st century, I would have chance to talk about the problems, engineering or whatever problems, with my colleagues, not seeing who is a man or who is a woman. I do respect those who would like to emphasize their masculinity or femininity. That's okay with me. I'm not speaking about asexual human beings, but somehow such kind of discussions in the 21st century is something that I realized we missed so many things. We missed in raising up our sons. We have to go back, maybe to the point where my grandma was stopping when she died, and go on and try again, just to make them understand that this is the mother who gave a birth to the nation. I do respect fathers. I do respect men. I had fantastic relationship with my father. He was one of my role model who made me so strong, because thanks to him and his, let's say, tactics, I developed my self-confidence. That was my father. Who can I say thank you? But it's not father who make a nation. It's mother who give a birth. And all those men who think that being man, it's just something by nature, that you are like a little god and the women should be shut up and go to the corner, they should know that they were also born by mother, not by father. Okay, let's say something like teasing the discussions, maybe not exactly what you were expecting, because you wanted to hear something directly like physical atrocities, which I'm very against, and I was in many situations in my life to raise up against that, and then I was in the first row to say no, and I was even saving so many of my colleagues who were either in the relationship or within the marriage where the man thought that they can really be their woman. It was.
I'm sorry, Sabina, please conclude your discussion. We really need to have involved everyone.
Yes, I'm just concluding. I said that maybe it's not like that, but I just wanted to tease the discussion, at least to somebody, to be icebreaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you. What kind of engineer are you?
Sorry?
You're an engineer?
Yes.
What kind?
I'm agronomist, agriculture.
Agronomist. Because I started my studies as an engineer. And because that's what I was expected to do as a male. Doctor, engineer, very limited. My father was an engineer, electrical engineer. And so I was supposed to be like my father. And I was very talented at math. And so I started my university studies as an engineer. And I got really good grades and I hated it. So my father got very mad at me when I changed to study philosophy. He was very mad. How are you going to get a job? What are you going to do? So I felt like I was a victim of reverse discrimination. Like the choices, I was born in 1959, so 5 years before you. And sometimes I wonder if we still have not progressed very far, even though now, of course, there are more choices. I had to actually, really battle. It was like a fight. So what you said about how do we emancipate, I like that word emancipation. How do we emancipate ourselves? You said we need to emancipate men more, but how do we emancipate men and women today in a way that we have more choices in life? Does that make sense? Because I think we still think in boxes about what a man can do, what a woman can do. We're more progressive maybe, but not so much as we should be.
Am I allowed to give just a short reflection?
Yes, of course.
Okay, is it okay? Okay.
Yes.
Oh yes, I fully agree with you. That's why I started like this. I think now we are even more in the boxes than in the 70s and 80s and 90s in the last century.
Wow.
I don't know how that's happened, honestly, but I feel that we are even more in the boxes. Somehow I think that our generation, because you and me, we're almost the same generation, 5 years means nothing. It was more free, more liberal, more in exploring way to do the best, to make ourselves the best versions of ourselves. So I'm speaking on my own experience, but also on the experience of my generation. Somehow I feel now that we are even more closed, and I don't know why that's happened in a civilization. And not only in Bosnia, I'm seeing, because I'm traveling around the world and I see them, and very similar problems we have seen. For sure that the principle of emancipation should be adopted. something new we have to do. We have to invite and find out how to do, because otherwise we will have a problem in the very close future.
Okay, thank you. What are some other people's thoughts?
If I may just, I know that people who are here at the session would like to join us, so I would like us to be focused on the question and then try really to answer following the Socrates method. So and I want to ask you to limit yourself to 2-3 minutes to provide a chance to everyone to be part of the discussion. Thank you.
Okay, we had Elvisa, if her audio works now.
Okay, can you unmute her?
I can, okay, I think she's doing it herself. Or Elvisa, if you have issues, you can write it in the chat and then we will read it out loud and discuss.
Hi.
I think her internet is.
But and while we're waiting for Elvisa, are there some others who would like to offer their views on what violence, what gender inequality is? Is it about very limited opportunities in politics, in your work profession? Jasna, what about you? What do you think? Anybody?
Hi, everyone. I hope that you can hear me.
Yes.
When we're talking about gender equality or inequality in Bosnia and Herzegovina, let's say, we have a very rich tradition in socialism of women being equal, or at least politically, that political party was trying to promote gender equality. But the problem with the socialist perspective on gender equality is that it was pretty much aesthetic. It was not substantial in terms that women were included and involved in the public sphere. They were present in education and different professions, including engineering and also high political positions. But the problem remained, the problem of inequality basically remained in the private sphere. So women came across another type of problem, another type of burden, which is called the double shift. They were working outside the house. They were very active in politics. They were very active in education. A lot of them attained their PhDs and were very respected members of society. But after coming back from everyday work, they also had to face the problem of inequality in the private sphere. This includes taking care of children and taking care of dependent members of family in their homes. So that created a sort of double burden, which enabled them, basically disabled them to focus more on their careers. And this created imbalance, which created more pressure in terms of their psychology and psychological well-being. So while we are talking in the same time about gender equality in the public sphere, we are also not discussing about this problem that is related to the care responsibilities within the household. So even after Yugoslavia disintegrated, this also remained a challenge. And even today, this also is a very serious challenge to new generation of young girls and young women, how to create this balance. And this is also a very important topic for educational institutions as well, to raise awareness about these issues and to talk about gender equality on a more substantial level, not on only formal or aesthetic level. So this really is a challenge. And here I can see a lot of my co-workers, friends, and researchers who are into this topic, and we work on these research together as well. And we are trying to decipher everything, but it's really difficult because societal norms are as such that we still have strict gender roles and that are basically preventing women and young girls to establish the balance in their private and public domain.
Did you say that there's laws that prevent it?
Not laws, but societal norms. Strict gender roles within society that are basically stemming from this gender inequality that women face in the private sphere. So this is really a difficult challenge to achieve the work-life balance, for example, now for women, because they usually have more burden in terms of domestic care, in terms of taking care of children and elderly. So it's really preventing them, for example, in the business sphere, in the politics, it is preventing women to advance in their careers, especially vertically, to become women who are in higher managerial positions because they cannot concentrate on their careers. But this is also the case in politics, because business and politics are, they follow the same patterns.
This gives us a lot of good substance for future discussions in terms of positive steps that we might take to find that balance at a time when there, as some of you have already said, it seems to be getting worse instead of better in ever so many ways. What are some other people experiences with gender equality and violence against women? What are some of the other thoughts of participants? Thank you so much. Yes.
If I may, while we are waiting for someone else, I would like just to add to this discussion that what we heard from Sabina and from Jasna, it includes an important words like power relations, superiority, inferiority, control, intention to assert a superiority over family members or over women or someone else, specifically minorities. So it's always a matter of imbalance of power, what Sabina already said in her discussion. So maybe we can discuss a bit about this. It is both in private and public sphere of life. Thank you.
So what are some other thoughts about that? Naida, do you want to say something? Elvisa?
Jasna is speaking, but she's muted.
Who is?
Oh, perhaps she was just talking to somebody else.
Okay, maybe people still need a bit more time. Yeah, maybe I would just like to add on, because I feel like since majority of us are working in this field of, fighting against gender-based violence, so it's easy for us to slip into these technical terms. So maybe that kind of created some sort of a pressure. So if you want to have some personal experience, you can just retell it without any, kind of critical analysis of it. So yeah, maybe I would just like to add, without this stance of somebody who works on this issue, that this violence, it's very important that, especially in the Balkans, it's always an image of physical violence. So you are never thinking, oh, maybe I'm victim of this because I'm not a victim of some, very brutal crime or some, harsh physical attacks. But actually, when we analyze what violence is, that violence is not just restricted to this physical dimension, then it all kind of clicks to everybody. Oh, okay, if that's violence, then we've all been victims of different sorts of violence. And especially what you, Christopher, said, that it's sort of this limitation And I think that's how I first experienced it. As I think it's Sabina, she mentioned, she's coming from this STEM discipline, engineering. So maybe there's that stereotype, okay, it's expected to have some kind of prejudice there. I was actually on a completely opposite side. I also graduated philosophy, so, the most out of humanities, and I still experienced this. It was on like the first year, we were actually doing Plato's dialogue, so, doing the Socrates dialogues, and then because it's majority male students, they're like, oh, like, why are you preparing for that exam? Because you're not gonna get a good grade. Like, you can learn it excellent, but that professor, he doesn't like girls who enroll in philosophy. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is even that kind of argumentation or explanation? And then I thought, okay, I'm a stubborn person, so now I will study even more intensely. And I did get an excellent grade, but I thought, like, so many girls would maybe enroll it just to try, and then they're faced with that pressure that's coming from top, from professor, but also they're like colleagues and people who are not even in that department. And that's kind of when you see, okay, it's not just acts of violence, it's all of these acts of limitation, or somebody trying to pull you out of some spot, even if you found a place for yourself.
Thank you for that. I mean, when any group of people, indigenous groups, minority groups, women, when they are excluded from something, is that exclusion almost a form of violence?
Yeah, I think I was on that track.
Mm-hmm. And what do you do? What do you do to push back? Do you find other people who agree with you and you do it together? Do you try to do it alone?
We have Yasna.
Because recent research from neuroscience actually gives us evidence that the exclusion as a process.
Sorry, Yasna, it's just a bit robotic. If you could put the microphone closer or something.
Okay, maybe it's the connection. Is it better now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I just wanted to add to the discussion because the recent research from neuroscience is actually giving us evidence that the exclusion is activating the centers in the brain as if the person is experiencing physical pain. So there is a really, really convincing scientific evidence that exclusion actually is pain, and it reflects in the brain as if you're experiencing physical pain.
Mm-hmm. Ceci, do you want to say something? Because this is my wife's specialty. She's glad you said that.
Yeah, well, I've been thinking about several things from attachment theory, and I want to touch a little bit on that because I think there's, like I see it in Mexican society, and perhaps you will think
I'm going to do this one.
how in your society may be the same. And it's about how we, when we have been in dangerous situations, for example, particularly when our parents were the ones who were our source of fear, then there's an ambivalence in the brain, and then we don't know, because biologically you go to your caregiver when you are afraid. So when your caregiver is someone who is the source of terror, then there's an ambivalence, and then women put themselves in those situations again because they don't, that's how the brain feels safe. And I mean, I see it here in Mexico. I think that's the situation. We are at such a high level of violence, and women put again themselves in those situations. What I hear from what you're saying is it's more a matter of power in where women have the burden of their professions plus the burden of being caregivers at home. So it's like society is expecting us to be 100% professionals and 100% mothers and housewives, right? So what I've been thinking about how violence can be also something that we do to ourselves, in the way of how those roles can be, how do we break away from those expectations? Like women in Korea are saying, yeah, we're gonna be 100% professionals, but we're not gonna have kids. And then what's gonna happen to the next generation, right?
Let's go. What you said makes me think. Lamia, thank you so much for accepting my invitation to write on the chat, because I became a dad late in life. I have a 10-year-old daughter and a 17, almost 17 and a half-year-old daughter. And I'm worried about the boxes and the choices that they can have. And am I pronouncing your name right, Lamia?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Okay, so first, Lamia, and stay right there. Let's read what you said. You said, as a high school girl, I see not of the problem of gender inequality in school system too. You see it in the school system too. For example, teacher will put loud and problematic boys next to shy and quiet girls because teachers think girls will take care of them and calm them down. And how are they teaching young girls to take care of themselves, to be confident, if they're putting girls in a role of a mother to a boy her age? And later in life, young women will have pressure to take care of problematic men and change them to be functional part of society because men are already used to it. For example, many of them will say, oh, I know me and my wife are working, but she's a woman like my mother. What is the problem for her to wash dishes, etc.? So Lamia, what have you done? Have you done anything to push back against this? So to change, to emancipate, to change the balance, because it's an unfair balance. Lamia, have you been able to do anything to change it? Lamia, are you there? Or do you can write it.
I think the problem is here the most parents will have the same thinking as the teachers. So we as a kids and young adults, we can't do much.
So how old are you? If you don't, can I ask that? You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
I'm 17.
You're 17. Are there others, young women your age who agree with you? Can you do something together?
I think we could. Or we could, like in school, to make presentations about that.
Like what would a presentation, like what might it be? We're just thinking. Like what would your presentation be?
First, there will be examples in our life.
About what would the examples be? About what you're talking about?
Like in group projects, where they are girls and boys. Boys will probably do nothing because they are already thinking, oh, the girls need a good grade, so they will do all the work, and I could just like participate in it. That's one of examples.
And can I ask you, are you planning to go to university?
Yes, I do.
And what do you want to study?
Economics.
Economics. So that's also been another male-oriented, a male-dominated field, right?
Yes, I know.
So I'm just wondering what, to all the participants, for instance, in the politics in your country, only about 21% of the elected officials are women. You know, what small steps can we take because you've indicated that they're all combined together in our private lives, our public lives, our professional. What are some steps that we can take, just small steps that might be giant over the long time? Like for instance, Lamia, when a teacher puts the boy, can you protest? Can you say, no, this is not how it works? Or is that not allowed?
I think we could, but we were very young age to do that.
You were?
We have a 10-year-old who is fearless. And so here in Mexico, there's this kind of music called reggaeton, which it's like kind of rap that talks really bad things about women. And she objects every time that the music is on. And so she's always, kind of in the middle of things because it's kind of fighting off that part of the culture and defending how we, even though we're not physically the same, we should have the same rights. And I feel like I was thinking about what Sabina said before, how perhaps in the 70s there was this awareness also from men, like not to interrupt women, not to have them apologize, because those are kind of subtle things in which men, or their anger, in where men perhaps kind of cultural things that put women down, and then I don't know if it's social media or what, where again the roles are very divided, and perhaps the new generation that was born with social media and everything, all us adults are trying to learn how to live with it. And there's a newer generation where they see us in our phones and they ask us to put them away, right? And I feel like, there's a little girl, I see a little girl there, and I feel that that's our hope, for me, this new generation will create more of that awareness, just like really open our eyes also as mothers, as women, on how to perhaps change for the generations to come.
So I would like to ask, there have been many silent people. What are your thoughts about what people have said? What are some other people who have not yet spoken or written? Can you share your thoughts? I know you've met me for the very first time, and so you might not feel comfortable. Yes. It says,
Elma.
Yes, please.
Hello. Well, I think that when we speak about violence against women, we should not forget the violence itself. I think that the violence against women has its basic in the general culture of violence. It is common for women to be considered weaker or more delicate, or those who need who need some, who are not enough strong to defend themselves. That alone makes them convenient to be victims of bullies. I dare to say that our civilization is mostly built on violence. Violence is tolerated in our societies all around the world, and we use the violence as we need it. So according to actual needs. And it is very difficult to speak about violence against women if we don't speak about violence as a big problem of the whole society. Of course, I'm not saying that violence against women is less problematic when we know this. Unfortunately, it is even more problematic because my question is how to change awareness of all of us, even how I will change my awareness, although I'm very aware that violence is something what is acceptable, needed, what is solution for a problem. If you have that kind of thinking, then it is in a way normal that somebody will be victim. In this case, victims are women. So that is my problem. I also studied philosophy, so my problem is not just being a woman, it is also to be a philosopher. I always have more questions than answers.
Well, I really appreciate that, what you said. It makes me think sometimes when somebody says something to me, if I'm not really listening to them, or if I do not have respect for them, then that's a form of violence. You know, I'm not really interacting as an equal human being. If I'm already thinking of my next thought, you know, is all of these things to me are forms of violence. When we really listen to each other carefully, that to me is huge. It's a big step forward. Okay, somebody, Vivax, thank you so much for that. Vivax, what did you want to say? You have your hand up.
It's not Vivax, it's Elvisa, but I just changed the device. Do you hear me now?
Leaving.
Oh, yeah.
Me now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Because I have some problems with internet connection and I had to put down my laptop and then I took this Viva tablet. Now internet connection is a little bit better.
Yes.
Well, first of all, I have to apologize because now at the moment I'm very mad. Like a big black Afro-American mad woman. That's how mad I am, and I will try to behave myself as much as I can. The reason why I'm mad because I was born at 70s, 1976 actually, in Sarajevo, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And my parents were educated, urban, modern, hippie, young people. They raised me as a feminist, and we didn't know that we are feminists. And I'm a little bit boring to myself for saying this so many times as a parent, especially at Zilka's school, fair school. I'm one of her students, and big salam for my dear Zilka. I love her very much. Elma Softic was also one of my professors. She is also my dear professor, my dear teacher at that school. I learned there a lot. And I really didn't know that I'm a feminist because my father was a feminist and we never used that word. because it was no equality of all people. One of very important reasons may be that at the time my country, Bosnia and Herzegovina, was part of Yugoslavia, a socialistic federative republic of Yugoslavia, which was one of the most successful, by my opinion, most successful communist country in the history. And communism as an ideology has a propaganda that every human being is equal, no matter how old you are, how educated you are, or what is your gender. So maybe that was also one of the reasons why my parents were raising me and my two younger sisters like that. But we had all the toys we wanted to have. I had dolls, I have small dishes for cooking, I had guns, I had balls like boys. I play football with. I don't know if you as American know what is a football. Soccer. I also play soccer with the boys, and I don't know. I was raised like you can do anything what you want to, and then my country dissolved. Communism was destroyed. Capitalism came. Religion came. I became religious. Islam was my religion of choice. I have to say that. I went to Christianity before Islam, but I chose Islam because I liked it better. That's another topic, but I wanted you to know that that was my choice after communism. And then what we get? We get something what turned us for 400 years back somewhere. I don't know where even our grandmothers have been. And everything was explained by religious rules in all three sides here in our region: Catholics, Orthodox, and Muslims. Everything was explained by situation from Adam and Eve and other characters from Bible and Quran.
So how can you relate that to this, what we're talking about?
What?
So how do we connect that to what's happening today?
It's very good thing that we learn about that and very freely and openly talk about that at the Zilka school. And that's one very good and free space for speaking out loud everything. But the problem is that society doesn't go that way. And we are something like underground. I'm very sorry for that. And I'm very happy that Zilka exists. But we are something like underground while they are mainstream. And they are so I don't know how do you say this. I mean, I'm very glad that you, Professor, are the same origins as we are from Balkans, and you know how Balkan is a very patriarchy, strong territory on this planet. But actually, as I realized in Zilka school, every part of planet it is so. I don't know what we can do. I don't know what we can do, and that's the reason why I'm very mad, and I'm especially mad at women because I see women how they accept that and do nothing. I mean, what would I do if ever any man hits me? I mean, man, he could do it once, just once, and I would break his arms. I would kill him, go to jail because of that or something, but hello, man, you cannot hit me. Nobody can hit me. And anyway, diminish me as a human being. Doesn't matter if I'm a woman or a man. Sorry, man, but you cannot do that. My mother didn't push me through her vagina. Sorry for my words. And didn't bring me into this world so that somebody can enjoy in torturing me. No. So I'm very mad when I hear young women to say there's nothing we can do. I was also very young woman. I was 16-year-old when I met my ex-husband. Now I'm divorced woman. And I told my ex-husband, I was 16 at the time, he was 19. And I told him, if there is a destiny like that we stay together, that we start to live together at the university, that we stay together for all our life, I want you to know that I think that men and women are equal, and I want you to cook and clean house and do everything as I do. And then he told me, well, that's normal for me. That's also how I think. And actually that's happened. We continue our relationship and we were together during university time, and I got pregnant, and then we got married, and etc. And we really had that gender equality in our marriage, and we also had it during our divorce. And I really cannot imagine that some young girl cannot say or do anything. You have your own brain, you have your own head, you just have to be free inside your chest. You have
Thank
to
you
be
so
brave
much for that.
and say, I want this, I think this, even if I'm different from all other girls in my school, in my town, I want freedom for myself. And that's all you have to do. And thank you very
so
much for giving space to say something.
I appreciate it so much. And you're just meeting me for the first time. I appreciate the trust that you have in me, Cecilia. I want to go to Amra C. She wrote in the chat, and also there's one from Jasma, but Amra, you haven't spoken yet. You wrote, I think a problem for women is that some men think they can do the same things like them. It is also a problem with finding jobs. Most of the jobs are just for men, while there are jobs which can be done by men and women too, in which there are bigger chances for men to get the job than women. And it all depends on environment, society, on how we are raised, etc. And you say you're a master of science in political science, 26 years old, but I saw some issues as Lamia. Guys get the jobs already in that situation. I felt like, yes, okay, but I'm a woman. It's not the same. That is just perspective. There are people who see me as a person and I feel better than them. That is gender equality. So Amra, can we take you off of mute? Can you expand a little bit on what you shared in your writing? Are you seeing progress now? More progress?
Yes. Hi, first of all. I just thought like it's not the same, like we are in 21st century and we are still struggling with that. It's a great idea to talk about it. It's making progress. It's great. And we have to talk about it. Thank you for all you done with this. So I think there is, in those situations I wrote, there is a fight which is in myself, then to fight it. Then yes, and I have to say that that's the only way. I have to go further, and it's okay for now.
It's okay for now? Can you, it's so there's a struggle, there's a fight. And do you, like, I'm wondering, even with participants here, we have, maybe as we move forward in the next 3 sessions, we will develop strategies here, unique strategies with very different beliefs that how we can move forward. Some other people who have not yet spoken, what are your thoughts and philosophy about gender equality and violence towards women?
We also have some men in the audience, so maybe this is a unique opportunity to get that perspective.
Can you tell me who?
It's Ognjen and Christian. I guess you can't assume without knowing local languages.
It's because there's
So-
no, they're not on video. Okay, so Ognjen, can you say, would you like to say something? And can you unmute? And Christian?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes.
It's all the people, all the audience have said everything. I don't have anything to add.
But you're a man. Do you agree with the perspectives as a male that this is the challenge, that there is not the equality that there should be?
Mm, I don't know actually what to say. It's
Well,
all
tell me a little bit about yourself. How old are you and what do you do?
I'm 22 years old. I'm studying German.
You're studying German. And what is your career aspiration? What do you want to do as a profession?
I don't know. Maybe teaching other people German, and that's all. I don't know. I have stress.
And
I
in
don't know what to say. Actually,
I appreciate that, but do you in your world do you think that there is inequality among genders?
yeah, a lot of gender equality, about sexual orientation in our country. It's
So
really prohibited to explain yourself as any kind of sexual orientation, and that's the problem.
the problem is that it's very rigid.
Yeah. Also, we have various religion kinds.
And what is the impact of the religions on gender equality?
For example, a woman that not the same religion, like in the most of BiH, can't have a job because of her religion, of her
Okay.
opportunity to work.
Okay.
That's all. I don't have anything to add.
Well, that's a lot. I'm glad you added that to it. I'm wondering if Christian would like to say anything too. Thank you so much for your comment, and actually that shares a lot. Christian, would you like to say something too?
Do you hear me?
Yes.
So I don't know what to say, but I agree with Ognian, because we are friends and we are just uh, uh, in this city in Zenza. So we are friends on our faculty, on our university, and I'm a law student and I have 19 years old, and that's it. Because
Okay. And what are your thoughts? Do you see in your world, do you see instances of gender inequality, violence, discrimination?
Hmm. I don't know what to say, but I just agree with Agnes.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Well, at least that's a start. I hope everybody here will also return next month and participate with us. And if we have it at a later hour, hopefully we'll have more as well. So Jasna had her daughter with her. I was hoping to see her. Is your daughter still there?
Here and there.
How old is she?
She's 7 years old.
How old?
7 years old.
7 years old.
Yes, yes.
So
And I had to.
do you feel more hopeful for her generation, or does it?
Yes.
You?
I
Why?
wanted to just go along with what Cecilia said, that we have to invest in younger generations, and they're already different. They are socialized differently, and technology is making a huge impact on them as well, because they're much more vocal, I guess, in contrast to, for example, my generation. And even at the age of 7 now, she's posing totally different questions that I was raising as questions when I was her age, in terms of equality, in terms of social justice. And it's like we were pre-programmed in a way to be much more compliant. And these younger generations are much better critical thinkers, I would say, because they have totally different world around them. They have so much more information around them. While we were pretty much straightforward, these younger generations are actually having everything just click away, so they can check, they can do fact checking. And it's very difficult to engage in a discussion with them without having proper arguments. So I'm really having, I'm having much hope about these younger generations, because they are not afraid to ask questions, and they are not afraid to be very vocal about what they really stand for.
Okay, you wrote in the chat that you said 60 to 70% of students studying economics are women, but after they graduate, they experience a variety of structural barriers on their way to managerial positions. So your daughter's 7. Let's say she decides to study economics, and then, she's 22 and she graduates. What can we do to make sure that she does not have those problems?
Somebody I think mentioned already, and I'm a really firm believer that educational system and educators are really important as focal points in communicating with young people from the earliest age, and being as role models, especially teachers, regardless of gender, who are aware of these gender inequalities, or generally about social injustice. I was mentioning this related to studying of economics, because I'm a teacher at a School of Economics, and I know this a percentage. And I quite often talk with my students, also boys and girls, and they are aware of these structural barriers. Some of them are on graduate studies, and they are already working, so they are having these experiences of encountering a variety of barriers on their position, on their managerial position path, for example. But just to refer to your question, younger generations, I think, they have a totally different mindset, and they have something that we do not. They're much more open about talking with something that really is a striking problem for our generation, for my generation, and maybe older generations. And this is called solidarity of women, which is basically a myth that does not exist. Because I have been investigating the position of women in business and also in politics. And what I've heard from interviews and from focus groups with women on managerial or political positions is that quite often they encounter a problem of not having women's solidarity. Women are not backing each other's back. They're not being supported. On the contrary, quite often men, as their colleagues, are much more supportive than women. So this is another problem, the women's solidarity issue, and these younger generations just have to break this vicious cycle. I'm having high hopes maybe for younger generations, but I think we as educators are also really responsible for these topics and talking about these topics with them.
Okay. I want to ask something, and I hope Agnan and Christian are listening. Are there any cases or instances of gender inequality against men? And anybody's welcome to answer that. For instance, for many years, it was considered inappropriate for a man to be a nurse, or to be a cheerleader. And and to this day, there are prejudices about what men can do. Are there any cases of gender inequality that more relate towards men in fields that might have been dominated by women, or other areas of life? To be the person who stays at home and takes care of the children. Yes, Zilka.
Yeah, of course. I mean, there are, and professions are dominated by women, like preschool education. So I had a student who applied for that job and he was rejected just because they don't have any male figure in their team. They're 100% women in preschools. So he was disappointed because he really wanted to work there, and I believe he would be great. Also, men who decide to train ballet or some to be artists or some other professions that are not considered suitable for them, or that they might be labeled as less men or even gayish if they accept or to go for that profession. So yeah, there is a lot of stigma and discrimination against men too. So that's not only against women. But our topic tonight was about gender-based violence, and it includes both women and men, but also persons of different sexual orientation. So this is all-inclusive term. And I would like to add, after the discussion by several participants here, that what we heard from Elvisa and some other, that despite the fact that we have secularization, socialist type in Yugoslavia, and what we faced in 1990s by the end of 20th century with ethno-nationalism, rise of ethno-nationalism and revival of religion, what we are facing today is a backlash of gender stereotypes and backlash against gender equality with anti-gender movement that is very vivid and active in South America, North America, around Western Europe. So it's not only the Balkans. I mean, patriarchy is rising, and we are facing new challenges. How to even to fight for the rights that's already been achieved, and that's really weird. That, for instance, reproductive rights that's been fought for 50, 70 years ago, now they are again on the plate for discussion, and there are tendencies to reduce them, like in the United States with the Supreme Court decision. I mean, that's a really global challenge.
Yes, it is. And so that's why I think it's really great that we were able to have a more open-ended general discussion this first time. And next time we're going to look at what role each of us can and maybe even must play in order to address these issues. And hopefully everybody will be thinking about that, not just thinking about it, but in your everyday lives, in your professional and personal lives, maybe what steps have you taken between this discussion today and when we meet again in a month? Because you have me thinking about a lot of different things. I wrote in my newest book that when one person is in a position of power, or one group, and they deliberately exclude others, well, guess what? They're also limiting their freedoms. They are not growing and evolving because they're so focused on excluding other people, using their power in ways that limit all of our freedoms, including theirs. In the old philosophy days, as those who are studying, they would call it almost a master-slave relationship. But the master also enslaves himself because he's excluding. And so let's think about our actions between now and the next time we meet. And hopefully, since we'll meet at 6 p.m. next time, there will be more, and you can maybe share with them, what are some things, the roles that each of us can play, including us who are not so much victims of such acts, as individuals, as communities, but as society on all scales, from the very local, including family, which is a kind of society, to your community. And then, as Zilka pointed out, to how these are completely interconnected on a global scale. What are some baby steps? Because baby steps can become giant steps that each of us can do in our everyday lives to make progress in this. Does anybody else want to say anything? And I want to thank you again. I know it takes time to develop trust, and I appreciate so much what you did.
If it's okay, I would like to say something, Christopher.
Of course.
Something about this, what you were just talking about, and something specifically to Cecilia. First of all, what I think what we can do and what we must do is for each of every one of us to go to psychotherapy, to have our own therapist, to become stronger personalities, and to build our self-esteem. I've never met in my entire life person, male or female, who has such a strong self-esteem as I do. And the reason for that is the way I was raised by my parents and marriage of my parents. They were very much in love with each other. They still are, even if they are old grandparents, grandma and grandpa. And that is something what provides a feeling of basic security for a child. Now I'm speaking as a psychologist, even though I'm not a psychologist, but psychology is something like my hobby, and I really know a lot about that. And my daughter, she is a psychologist, and I talk with her about that a lot. I want to continue this by saying that I've raised one daughter and one son as a feminist, and now they live their lives as a feminist with their partners and in their jobs also. My son is someone who is cooking and cleaning house and doing everything for his wife. And when she comes home in the evening, if he's home before her, there's always a hot meal for her. House is clean, bathroom is clean, ready for her to take a shower or something. Cat has feeded, and everything is just perfectly fine. And my son-in-law is also treating my daughter the same. They are totally different types of people. That's very important to know. My daughter and her husband, they are intellectuals and very keen of arts. And my son and my daughter-in-law, they are more like workers, just simple people, workers. And they're very different types of people, but still they live the same way of life as a feminist, as a gender equality in everyday life. And even what's very important, not only in the house, in their homes, but also when they go out to work. something like that, you must have very strong self-esteem. We have a very small percentage of women in politics. I'm in politics. I'm a social democrat and very proud to say that. I'm not a communist, but I'm very strongly pro-socialist and social democrat. We have a very small percentage of women in politics, but as I've seen, when you come in the room, no matter where, in a politics, in a school, anywhere, in a job, if you come with a feeling or of self-esteem, there is no man in that room. Even if there is a 17 man and you are 18th person and the only woman in the room.
Okay.
There
Thank
is
you so
nobody
much for that.
equally. You must have your own team and not think about yourself. I'm not equal because I'm a woman. I never have that in my mind. Never, not even in the back of my mind. And for Cecilia, hola.
Hola.
Yo soy muy orgullosa de ti.
Wow, impressive.
Yo soy muy enamorada que todos latinos, en latino cultura, yo no hablo muy buen español, pero eso poco que yo puedo hacer en español, yo quiero por mi amor por tu gentes, y yo sé muy difícil, muy difícil en México, y quiero que tú succeedes.
So nice of you. Guys, we're at the end now, and I just want to thank Zilka and Ivana for making this possible. And I'm wondering if you have any closing comments for this first session.
Yeah, I would just like to thank everybody for their attendance. Even though this is a first session, it's online, it's maybe hard to share your thoughts. And as you mentioned in the very beginning, it's, you know, a second language, so that can also be a bit tricky. Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, so I would just like to emphasize that since we agreed to record this session, it will take maybe a few hours to convert and everything, but tomorrow it will already be uploaded on our YouTube channel from TPO Foundation, and you can find it on our website, so you can easily access it, share it with other friends who maybe want to join in on our next session. So, you know, this can be an example how the Socrates Café are actually happening, and you know that it's not strictly academic. You can just share a personal experience or something similar. So yeah, we already agreed that the next session will be at 6 p.m. It will be at the beginning of the next month, so we will see each other in March. We will still agree if it's going to be the first Monday in a month or, you know, maybe Tuesdays, but it's very optional and you will be updated on it. So yeah, I would just like to again thank everybody. I think it was very fruitful. We had very different perspectives, and personally I'm very glad that we have very different ages. So from 17, from Jasna's daughter who is 7, all the way to older generations. So yeah, maybe if Professor Zilka wants to add something, that's it. So yeah. Thank you, Cecilia and Christopher. It was very pleasant and enjoyable, and we will see each other in March.
Thank you. We'll also post this on our Socrates Café YouTube channel, but I'm so grateful to Zilka and to your organization for the amazing invitation. It's such an honor for us. So we'll see you in a month, but think about, between now and then, let's think about an act in our little lives. What can we do right now, right here? Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. So you all have homework. Bye.
Yes, we do. Made me think so much. Thank you, everybody.